Welcome back to Petty Astrology. I'm your host, Kaycee Felton-Lui. We made it to Gemini season, folks. I know that this Taurus season was a lot. It was a lot of dramatic energy. It was very magnified, so that made it even more dramatic seeming. And it's just been a lot of energy. And it's a lot for Taurus energy in particular, which tends to prefer things move in a little bit of a slower, steadier pace. So it's like being pulled in a couple different directions at the same time. And I don't know about you, but I'm still very much recovering from all of that energy. It's just been a lot. And of course, now we've got Gemini season happening, and well, the fun doesn't stop this year. You know, this is even more big energy, and of course, Gemini is a very different flavor of energy than Taurus. Taurus is a lot slower and steadier, a little bit more restful, a little bit more placid, whereas Gemini, well, it can be a little chaotic, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I am actually a really big fan of Gemini energy in general. And with all of this big, dramatic, global energy, because of course transits are global, you know, this is energy that is affecting every single person on the planet in a different way, because of course it's going to depend on your personal chart, your personal energy. For me, Gemini energy keeps me going, even through moments of challenge and frustration and grief. Gemini energy just lights me back up. It's a very vibrant energy. It's always keeping it moving. And I think we need that buoyancy, that flexibility right now. If you know anybody with strong Gemini energy, they may be the kind of person that needs to keep themselves interested. As soon as it gets uninteresting or illogical in a certain way, you might find that Gemini energy isn't really that interested. We can shift our focus and move to something that is more preferable. And I think that's a skill we should really be leaning into right now. There is a lot happening on the world stage. Some of it we can do something about. Some of it we are directly related to. So this is not me encouraging you to avoid things or bypass things just because they might be uncomfortable. But what I'm saying is, if you find yourself during this Gemini season doing something and you're just like not feeling it anymore in that particular moment and you don't have to push yourself to keep going, don't do that. Switch to something that is going to keep that energy flowing. For example, you know, I make this podcast, I have the Patreon, I have TikTok, I have a bunch of other projects that I'm working on behind the scenes and stuff that I'm trying to roll out, right? There's a lot of different things going on at once. Doing mutual aid, getting more involved in the community, like life stuff, you know, there's a lot for me. And so with that, it's like very easy to get overwhelmed, right? And I'm sure that you can relate because I know that I'm not the only one that has a lot going on. Like everybody's got a lot going on. So if I find myself in a position where the energy is just kind of like stagnating, I'm finding myself getting frustrated with whatever it is I'm working on, or it's just not moving in the direction I want it to go to, that's a good signal for me with my Gemini Mars to switch directions, to work on one of the many other things that I have to do. You know what I mean? So with this Gemini season, this Gemini energy, it's not about avoiding things, but it's about getting things into a better flow and being adaptable about how you handle the things that you need to handle. Don't force it. Don't push yourself past perfect. If you can take a break, if you can redirect your energy to something that is preferable, experiment with that. See how much mileage that you can get out of letting yourself be flexible and not just like doing that capitalist thing where we force ourselves to sit down and do the thing that we don't really want to be doing right at that moment. And it's this process of frustration and difficulty. It's disconnecting. And Gemini energy is very much about connection. It's a very social energy in a certain sense. It's energy that reminds us that we also need lightness and humor mixed in with all of the bigger things that we have to do, right? So like, I have all this stuff on my plate. There's a lot going on. You know, there's plenty that I could be doing at all times, but I also have to make time to laugh, to look at memes, to yap with my pals, to make each other laugh, right? Those are things that are essential to helping me keep focused on the more serious things that I have to do. We need that agility. We need that flexibility. Yeah, we need to be logical. We need to think about the things that we're doing. We need to honor our need for intellectual clarity with ourselves and others. It's not about bypassing logic and just kind of doing whatever, but being able to adapt, to be able to shake things off when it's just not benefiting you to kind of sit in that energy for too long. And Gemini energy is so good at that. It's like even in moments where things can be really sad and really heavy, somebody with strong Gemini energy can switch and, be laughing moments later. And for those of us who don't have that energy strongly in our charts, that might be a little bit like, whoa, how can you just like flip on a dime like that? But that's just the nature of Gemini energy. Do we need to process our feelings about, the big stuff that's happening in our lives and the big stuff that's happening out in the world? Absolutely. But we don't need to get lost in it either. We don't need to swim in the badness, the things that are uncomfortable, the things that are frustrating, the things that are not working. That doesn't mean that they don't need to be dealt with. But maybe not right now, maybe not all at once. Because Gemini knows that there is a lot going on at any given time. There's lots to do and lots to see. So if you focus on just kind of a singular aspect of something, or you really, really zoom in and you set up shop there, you want to make sure that it's something that you are actually enjoying or benefiting from in some way. Because otherwise, we're going to miss out on things that we might actually enjoy, that might actually be beneficial to us. And it's about connecting with those things too. You might find yourself more aware of the place where you live, your neighborhood, this Gemini season. Is there connection right around you that you've been overlooking in some sense? Your relationship to your immediate environment and the other people that you share it with. I'm always talking about how important it is to be involved locally in the place that you live and build connections there. Because even places like that feel really familiar, that might even feel like boring or old news, there's still new things to discover, new connections to be made. And maybe these aren't connections that are necessarily, lifelong best friends, although you never know, you really don't. If you live in a place where there are people struggling to find housing, maybe there are neighbors that you have that are currently living on the streets where you live. Maybe there's connections to be made there. Maybe with people that haven't caught your attention before, or maybe, you've been too busy doing other things and this is an opportunity to kind of diversify your regular energy. Change it up, play with it a little bit. Gemini energy can be good for that type of mental and social exploration. Again, it's not about sitting in the same energy forever and ever. There's too much going on for that. Will we be able to do it all this Gemini season? Probably not. The reality is that this energy can pique a lot of interest for us. So yeah, you're gonna have to prioritize, like what are the things that you are most interested in? What are the things that are really gonna bring value and add to your longer term desires? Because a lot of our long-term desires are inspired by these smaller moments that we have, these smaller connections that we make intellectually or even with other people, because paying attention to other people and what's going on with them is really important, even if it doesn't directly affect us. There's a lot of information and understanding that comes from having that level of curiosity and indulging it. So this Gemini season, I encourage you to feed your curiosity, prioritize where you're going to be putting your energy, and stay flexible, stay open, and stay connected. Continue to build those personal connections and understand that even if those connections are just made for a brief time, those experiences can have a massive impact on how we view the world, how we think, and the direction that we're taking. So maybe we can have a little bit of contained chaos for Gemini season as a treat. Today on the podcast, I'm going to be talking about the astrology of celebrity and what we can learn from that as we move forward in this Pluto and Aquarius era. Then stay tuned, I'm going to take you through the energy of the Sagittarius full moon that's happening on May 23rd and the rest of the big astrology of the week ahead. Now, if you have been anywhere online, or maybe you're chronically online like I am, you've probably heard a lot of conversations happening in the past few weeks about celebrities. And yeah, people talk about celebrities a lot. That's kind of how they are celebrities, isn't it? But I've never seen something quite like what we've been experiencing over the past few weeks in terms of these cultural conversations that are being had on a mass scale. And a lot of these conversations picked up around the time of the Met Gala, which was on May 6th. I myself had something to say about that because I have just for years and years and years thought the Met Gala was just a glaring example of income inequality and wealthy people celebrating, reveling in their wealth, and then the rest of us, regular folks, paying a lot of attention to it as if it's something to be celebrated. These massive wealth disparities that are just on full display. And if you remember, Pluto stationed retrograde on May 2nd. So it was shortly after that retrograde that this conversation really blew up the way that it has. See, Pluto in Aquarius is really about people's relationship to power, humanity's relationship to power. How is that distributed? Who has the power? And with that retrograde, there's an opportunity to look deeper, reflect on those power dynamics that shape the collective. Are those dynamics serving us? And let's think about that for a moment. What does it mean to be a celebrity? What does it mean just on a basic level? What is a celebrity? It means being famous. It means being well-known and platformed in some way, right? Meanwhile, as all of this is happening, we've got multiple genocides happening around the world, and they're happening at a time when social media is probably at its broadest reach ever in human history, right? We're seeing live on the ground visuals of some of the things that are happening in these areas that are far away from us. We are getting a lot of insight about what it is to be a human being living through these atrocities. And a similar thing happened during the Vietnam War. That was the first war that was really broadcast on television in a way that really upset people's realities. It was very disruptive. And, as we look back on history, we can see that broadcasting made a difference in ending that war. And right now we've seen social media activating a lot of people because they do have access to these visuals, to this information that the mass media would probably keep away from them if they could. So people are being confronted with the contradiction of living in a quote unquote democratic, free society as we are told it is. In 1 second you can be scrolling and seeing footage from a war zone, and then the next second you're seeing a celebrity, in a $50,000 gown at a $75,000 event. And I think that the contrast between those two aspects of the world that we live in right now are becoming just so glaringly obvious. And I've actually been called a conspiracy theorist by some random genius online who had no idea what I was talking about, because some people don't see these things as having any relationship at all. What do celebrities have to do with what our government is doing? If you want to be very myopic, if you want to be very reductive, yeah, those things don't seem related at all. But have you ever noticed how much mass media is dedicated to covering what celebrities are doing? At any time, there are multiple channels on TV where you could go and see what celebrities are up to, or, promotional stuff for the projects that they're putting out, or interviews, or red carpets, or whatever it is. There's so much media attention around these well-known figures. And then there are many people that are very interested in what celebrities are doing. That's just a normal part of their life to take in that type of information, follow their faves, follow people they even don't like. A lot of energy goes into platforming celebrities and taking up our attention. And when we started talking about like blocking celebrities as a reaction to the outsized amount of attention that they've been taking, and also their lack of interest in like very serious world events, I think that has really bothered some people. But I was somebody that had honestly a lot of celebrities blocked before this whole thing. So I think I have an interesting perspective on the situation. And for those of you that might be listening to this with like a gotcha, like, oh my God, you've worked in entertainment, so how could you say this about celebrities? You know, that's not really a contradiction that I ever consider, because I didn't get into entertainment to worship celebrities or be near them or hang out with them. Like, that's never been what it's about for me. And it's not that I have like zero interest in any celebrity ever. I'm really just not a person that likes celebrating people just because they're well known or just because a lot of other people know about them. But if you're a person online and, you know, the algorithms are feeding us celebrity at every turn. Like, I've never been a person that is super into tabloid stuff, but even still, my algorithm feeds me things about celebrities on a pretty regular basis. And so that was a big part of why I have so many celebrities blocked, because it was like, I just felt like I was being advertised to. Because I think what it comes down to is that people don't necessarily look at celebrities as products. And I'm not saying that they're not human beings. They are human beings. But I think being a celebrity in this day and age especially means that you are sort of a product. You make more money depending on the reach you have, the more seen that you can be, the more the media interviews you, put your face on everything. Maybe if you're a celebrity that has business projects, that all connects. Like, there is a lot of money to be made, not only from the celebrities themselves, but, you know, they all have agents, managers, they've got teams that work with them. They also have, you know, publicity people. And then from the mass media side, you know, there are media entities that entirely revolve around celebrity. And even the ones that don't are interested in celebrity because having these well-known people attached to the things that they're doing in some way, shape, or form gives them more reach. To be a celebrity is to be known. And I've definitely talked about this before here on Petty Astrology, but these people don't have any reach if we don't let them. We can stop engaging with them. I started working in television 12 years ago, and over that period of time, I saw having a really well-known celebrity actor attached to a movie or a TV show mean a lot less to these big companies. And the reality is that they do a lot of analysis about this type of stuff because that's, you know, how they make their money, and that's really all they care about. But a lot of actors that used to be considered these really high status, like big catches, are not able to get the resources behind them that they once were. So I think over the course of Pluto and Capricorn, we've seen this decline. A lot of celebrities aren't the money makers that they once were. I think a lot of people have been, whether they're conscious of it or not, divesting from celebrity to some degree. Another really important thing to remember about celebrities, like I said, these are businesses. Yes, they are people, but they are also themselves business entities. In a lot of cases, they're very sizable corporate entities. And we have seen through Pluto in Capricorn this revealing of the underbelly of what it means to be a corporation. These very top-down hierarchies that are centered around making money. And I think people really have to remember this about celebrities. At the end of the day, generally speaking, it's about the money. It's about maintaining the status and having the reach. So a lot of the decisions that celebrities are making on a day-to-day basis about what they do and don't talk about revolves around maintaining that. Like, would you expect a major corporation to do the right thing just because it's the right thing? I wouldn't. It's based on optics and calculating what their audience is going to be most receptive to. And I'm not saying that no celebrities have any morals or anything that they feel strongly about, but we have seen by and large, many of them, this is the situation. And even a lot of celebrities that have like spoken out, especially right now with the issue of the genocide in Palestine, it is a very difficult thing to speak about in the entertainment industry. There is a lot of pushback and there is a history of blacklisting. So in terms of maintaining that celebrity status, maintaining career, it's very difficult, even for people that are not very famous or well known, to be on the right side of history. We are not that far off historically from the McCarthy era, where people were literally being put on trial to judge their political beliefs. And so many writers, actors, all types of people within this industry were blacklisted. They were unable to find work in their industry because of their political beliefs. And in fact, they were considered anti-American radicals. Sound familiar? I think it's cool to support people that do have a sizable platform that are supporting the things that are right, because obviously we're seeing it's not the most popular thing to be doing. But I think we need to look very carefully about who we invest our energy in, our time into. It's totally cool to admire somebody as an artist or a creative or a performer or a thinker. And if you like their work, I think it is a really good thing to pay people for their work, pay people for their energy and the things that they're putting out in the world. But I think it's really time that we stop expecting celebrities to be a special kind of person. Like, just because they have the status and the platform and the reach, that they're above us somehow. That's really the energy of this retrograde Pluto in Aquarius. Because when you are a part of a hierarchy or you maintain some kind of hierarchy, you're reinforcing some level of separation. Like, celebrities are better than us, right? And I think we also need to think about like why we even have celebrities. Because think about it. Yeah, there's always been well-known people, right? But think about like way, way back, hundreds and even thousands of years ago, before we, had a TikTok or a cell phone or an internet connection, or even like tabloid magazines. It was a lot harder to be well-known, to have a big reach. And in fact, a lot of the people that were well-known were royalty. Yeah, that's right. Royalty, nobility, people of some kind of social class or social status that really separated them from everyday people in a huge way. And I think that very much reflects the type of energy that celebrities hold in our culture now. And it's always kind of been a situation where there are more of us than there are of them, right? Like, if you're going to be special, there can't be that many of you. Especially if being special involves like, having a ton of money and resources. So most of us come from people that were just, regular people. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being a regular person. But I think that culturally, coming from this history, these backgrounds that we come from, where that status is a part of a lot of different cultures, I think it's been sort of easy for us to attach this value to celebrities in a similar way that we used to do for royalty. I mean, some people still do for royalty. I'm not a royalist. I could not care less. But a lot of people do. And a lot of people have been trained to look outside of themselves for people to look up to or revere or just pay a lot of attention to or just think are really cool. So I think we just need to be very clear and very mindful of like how we engage with a thing like celebrity. And I think with the energy of the Pluto and Aquarius era, it's going to get harder and harder to justify separating some people from others, right? Like, why should celebrities be held to a different regard than the rest of us? Because they have money? Because a lot of us know who they are? Okay. And especially while we watch so much of the world burn literally and figuratively, it's going to become harder and harder to justify maintaining that boundary between the regular folks and the celebrities. And when you're a celebrity and you have that big of a reach, when people know who you are, it's very easy to monetize. And we know that a lot of celebrities are very wealthy. And we know that wealthy people use a lot more resources. They have private planes and they actually do fly a lot more because they can. So they are responsible for a lot more consumption of resources than a regular person is. They have the resources to throw around. And so on a climate crisis level, I think people are going to become more and more aware of these people that not only are well known, but they're well resourced. And they're also doing things that are actually causing an outsized amount of harm to the rest of us. And meanwhile, they're getting rich off of regular people. I do not think that as we move forward with Pluto and Aquarius, the people are going to like that very much. A lot of people are struggling to pay their bills right now. So I also think that the way we are viewing people with tremendous amounts of wealth, who a lot of the times like to flash that wealth, show themselves on the private jet, show all the things they're doing out in the world, the parties they're going to, the places they're going to, all of that is reinforcing their status, showing you what you don't have. But also it's feeding this idea that like you could have it too, right? How many people do you personally know that want to be famous? And they just like want to be famous because they want to be known and they want to have this lifestyle. They want to flash it around. They want to feel important. I've known people like that. I live in Los Angeles. Of course, I've known people like that. And what they're really wanting at the end of the day is value, some sense of value, which every single human being has. And elevation, right? They want the status. They want to be above and therefore separate from other people in some way. They don't want to be regular. It would be boring to be regular, to be unknown, to be anonymous. Some people don't feel like that's enough for them. But when your lifestyle comes at the expense of other people, I think that's a real problem. If you have these big platforms and all these resources and you just use them to make yourself feel better than other people, or go on vacation, or do celebrity crap, I don't know, like it's, I think, really getting harder for people to swallow, just seeing how very different some people live from the rest of us. And particularly the people that can't even live safely in their homes, that are being driven from the places that they've lived their entire lives, or the people that are suffering through climate catastrophes, which is going to be happening more and more because nobody's really doing much to mitigate climate change. We are seeing so many extreme weather events, and it's not wealthy people who suffer when these disasters happen. So yeah, I think that myself and a lot of other people do want those using more resources, flying the private jets all over the world all the time, buying a lot of shit, using a lot of shit. Those things have consequences. You aren't separate at the end of the day. You might have a certain level of status and resources, but you live in a shared reality. And if your actions are affecting the collective in such a significant way, I do think you have to be responsible for that. And I do think that people are just really fed up. There was a moment with this most recent Met Gala that I found really symbolic. One of the people that attended the Met Gala wore this dress that was like apparently inspired by Marie Antoinette, which already a bad sign. It's a really bad sign. And then there was this video of her saying, "Let them eat cake." And meanwhile, people are suffering tremendously financially, and bombing was happening in Rafah. So it could not have been more obvious how oblivious this very wealthy person was by saying this, literally imitating aristocracy. Marie Antoinette was a royal and was severely out of touch. And it's a little bit ironic that she chose Marie Antoinette because, of course, she was famously beheaded. The French Revolution, they had had enough. So I think this moment that she thought was really cute and fun was actually so perfect because that's exactly the situation. It is a very let them eat cake situation. These are people that have, again, separated themselves from the rest of us. And you have to understand how that affects somebody on a psychological level, to separate themselves in that way, to put themselves above other people in that way. Pluto in Aquarius is very much revealing how people are people. No matter what part of the world that we are from or our circumstances, at the end of the day, we are all people. The things that we do don't happen in a vacuum. They can have an effect on the people around us. So those of us who want to stick their fingers in their ear and keep living their royal lifestyle, while the rest of us struggle, suffer, and of course, keep paying them, whether it's with your time, your money, your attention, all of that is energy. People are having to look very critically at all of those things because resources are limited. So when you're thinking about celebrity, when you're thinking about people to platform and engage in, what do you think makes somebody worth knowing, worth platforming, worth celebrating? Because I think when you get really clear about what you value in that area, it becomes very easy to disengage from the people that just don't meet those standards. And are there people that might be overlooked or considered a little bit lower in status socially? You know, maybe they don't have as many followers. Maybe they're not online at all. Maybe they're just somebody that you know personally or in your community. Like, can we celebrate people just for being really good people, for contributing to society, to working for collective betterment, or who shares really interesting, thought-provoking ideas, or people that are really good at loving other people, or inspiring them in some way? We really don't just have to default hand our energy over to people just because a lot of other people know who they are. Because at the end of the day, they're just people. We are all just people. So I think we will see people continue to be very critical of celebrity. And as Pluto in Aquarius progresses, I have a feeling that the idea of celebrity is going to transform altogether. I think we're going to see a lot more of the sort of TikTok model where there's like a lot of celebrities, quote unquote, you know, a lot of people that have these larger platforms. So it won't seem like there's as many big figures that kind of stand apart. I think it's going to be a lot more wide of a net because I think people now can really find people that they connect with and they resonate with in a more specific way because of the internet. You know, we don't all have to like the same person because there's 4 channels on TV and we're all looking at the same shit all the time. Now everybody's got like a lot more specific interests and there's a lot more options. So I do think that we're watching the nature of celebrity change in a really interesting way with Pluto in Aquarius. And I'm very excited to see, especially over this next few months with Pluto retrograde. Pluto stations direct in October and it's in Capricorn. So we'll see how that plays into things. But for now, I'm loving it. I'm really loving it. Keep that blocking going. And find some new people that are worth following, that are worth investing your energy into, that are doing things that are actually like exciting and helpful. And think about what deserves our attention instead. The energy of this month is the kind of energy where my friends who like don't really know anything or care that much about astrology, which is fine, have been reaching out to me like, what is going on? And it's really funny because I actually have no idea what I'm supposed to say in that situation because I could tell them and they're going to be like, huh? But anyways, it's big energy. I'm tired. You're tired. Everyone's fucking tired. All right? I love you. We're tired. I get it. But damn, it's a lot of energy. I get it. And of course, we've got a full moon this week. The full moon is on May 23rd. It's at 6:53 a.m. Pacific. And it's at 2 degrees of Sagittarius. And then, of course, leading up to every full moon, we go through this period where a lot is coming up to prepare us for the full moon. And usually people start like saying that they're feeling the full moon before it's actually full. And that's actually that process that you're going through. And most people are uncomfortable around that processing. Stuff comes up that's ready to be let go. And that can be a very uncomfortable process. But full moons are about receiving. And we're going to be receiving some pretty intense energy for this full moon. People notoriously act out around full moon energy. And it's just a lot, especially when you're not a very conscious person. That does not mean that you cannot enjoy a full moon, because if you've been doing your work, this is a moment where you're receiving things from the seeds that you planted back in December at the Sagittarius new moon. And as I say in my manifesting circle, we are manifesting in every moment. Every bit of energy that we put out into the world, even if it's unconscious, is manifesting. And that's really powerful stuff. So if you planted some seeds around the Sagittarius new moon, you're going to be seeing some signs of life, that the work that you've put in has actually done something. And this is in Sagittarius. This is very visionary, forward-thinking energy. So you might come to some awarenesses about the direction that you want to move in. And maybe that vision is bigger than you thought it was going to be way back when. Maybe you're letting yourself think big. I think this is really great energy to focus on that larger vision that you have, because there are going to be a lot of distractions. There's going to be people that are on their high horse, they have an opinion, and they want to stand above you and they want to lecture down to you because they're right and you're wrong and they know everything and you don't know anything. We're going to see a lot of that type of energy. And honestly, just like feeding into that is just kind of a waste of time. There's a difference between sharing your vision and sharing your ideas and your excitement about them and elevating yourself above other people and talking down to them. Because in that process, you disconnect yourself by separating yourself from other people, by not being curious about them, meeting them where they are. The truth is I think we learn a lot more and we go a lot deeper and we truly expand our experience in the way that Sagittarian energy can do so beautifully. When we indulge our curiosity, when we come down to other people's level, we don't place ourselves above as being always right or all-knowing or better than. We all have different ideas and truths and values, and there's a lot to learn from engaging with that and being curious about other people, sharing those ideas, sharing those experiences, because it teaches us more about where we're going, what our long-term vision is. And it's so nice because when we can be real about what that vision is and where we want to go, we can meet other people that might meet us for parts of that journey, maybe a lot of that journey, or maybe just for a period of time, maybe just for one conversation. But every little experience, every time that we engage with the world, we go a little bit outside of our comfort zone. We gain more understanding. We gain more wisdom. We gain a greater sense of what our truth is and how we want to share it with other people. We can invite them in. And we can hear them out too. We can have conversations. So it's a good time to let go of things that are standing in the way of that long-term vision, that are keeping you small, keeping you where you are, where you've always been, where it's familiar, where it's comfortable. Can you stretch your legs a little bit? Can you take a walk? If life is an adventure, where do you want to go? And there's power in being honest about that. This is really another week of big energy because we've got that full moon on the 23rd. And then a few hours after that, we have Venus moving into Gemini. And that's just a lot of energy. It's just a lot of activity in one day. And then right after Venus moves into Gemini, it's immediately trining Pluto. So that's just also intense. And then there's more. Jupiter is also moving into Gemini on the 25th, so more intense energy. And then on the 27th, we've got Mercury sextile Saturn. So there's like a lot of extreme energy going on and some frustrating energy going on. So all this to say, I know we are tired. I know we're tired. And I want to refer everyone back to the beginning of this episode where I talked about the beauty of Gemini energy, because we are going to have to be ready to adjust our focus, because there are going to be frustrations. There are going to be things that probably aren't good uses of our energy that might be annoying, but might not really benefit us to engage with. So be light on your feet. Remember to find the humor in it. We cannot get through all of this without being a little silly sometimes. Gemini season is a great reminder that it doesn't have to be that serious, all right? So remember to take your deep breaths. I have meditations in the Patreon if you need to just change your focus. Maybe if I have time, I'll do a special meditation for this week, because I just love you guys. I love you guys for listening, and I appreciate you being here. So if you're a sponsor in my Patreon, you will always be the first to know about meditations or all the other goodies that I decide to drop. I actually have some really exciting news about bonus podcasts coming very soon, so patrons, stay tuned. Before we go, I have some important updates to share. I've had a number of people reach out to me about booking private readings, and I love readings and working with people one-on-one, because that's where I can really go deep with the astrology and get personal. But unfortunately for the moment, I've had to pause those readings. This was not something that I planned to do, but circumstances that were outside of my control changed. And I was in a situation that honestly had not been fair or healthy for me in a while. So I had to make a choice to either stay in something that was familiar or do what was best for me and walk away. And I wasn't sure that I was ready for that. I wasn't sure that I could do all of this on my own. But the last 6 months of making Petty Astrology and building a community with you all, one that is so thoughtful and passionate, has shown me that I am ready, that I love doing what I get to do for work every day, and that I am so supported. So thank you so much to everyone who has reached out, comforted me, and reminded me that the work that I do matters. You've helped me move through this moment and make it a fresh start that I'm really actually very excited about. So it's going to take me a little bit. I got to build the website and open bookings, but I promise, you guessed it, my Patreon community, you'll be the first to know when those are up again. All right, that's it for this episode. Next week, come back for our season 2 finale. I know, it's already the end of season 2. Feels like we just started yesterday, doesn't it? This episode was produced by Carrie Wilson and Lori Rivers and brought to you by my sponsors over on Patreon. If you'd like to support the podcast and become a member of the community, you can join for free at the link in the show notes.